Hi everyone, happy Thursday and welcome to my AEW Dynamite review. Guys, what a few days it's been since we last spoke on my Q&A. The election didn't go very well, did it? So a lot of sadness, but we're here to talk about AEW Dynamite, which went head to head with NXT. Did anyone else watch them both? Did anyone else have their two screens up watching them? I did. And I said this on Twitter. I did not think that either show was very good at all. But I had a feeling that NXT were going to take it because I feel like that's where things just are at the minute. The momentum is not behind AEW, and NXT was there doing an ECW nostalgia show, which isn't something that appeals to me, right? I watched ECW back in the day, and I've seen a lot, if not most of classic ECW, and nostalgia shows in general just don't appeal to me. It's just not my thing. I'm more into like just keeping moving forward. And especially with some of the appearances and cameos that we got in NXT. But I think how strongly they branded the show and the hype that they put around it and the lack of that you get from AEW and the feeling that's really behind NXT, WWE at the moment, it just all led to AEW losing on their own night and getting a very bad rating. And I'm sure there's a lot of things that affected how many people were willing to watch wrestling last night with everything that's happening. But it was bad for AEW, especially if you were there back in the day when the Wednesday night wars between AEW and NXT were a lot more in AEW's favor. Like things have really, really changed. So Dynamite, 523,000 viewers, down 16% from last week, and its fourth lowest audience total in the history of the show. So that's a really bad number. NXT, it got its second lowest audience since the move, but it was up 5.3% from last week, and it had moved nights. So let's get into Dynamite. I can also say some stuff about NXT, like kind of when I remember what was going on simultaneously. I thought of the two shows that Dynamite was the better show, but it's more catered towards me and my taste. So I think I'm always going to say that. I don't really think a show that had Bubba Ray Dudley on it is going to, be my show of the night. But anyway, it was a lot of people's. But I think that there were a lot of things that Dynamite did wrong. And it's a lot of the stuff that AEW is constantly doing wrong. Like they don't hype things properly anymore. They don't sell you on stuff anymore. I think a big example was the final match, it having a mystery partner in it and them not even properly hyping that. I know people that did not know that there was a mystery partner coming up in the main event. Like Benno, that you all know from Grapple and from me talking about him. Like I said to him when Dynamite started, who do you think the mystery partner is going to be? And he was just like, what? Like he didn't even know what I was talking about. So that shows you like the level of effort they put into to doing that. But anyway, look, I want this to be a fun stream. I have a lot of things to say. I have one wrestler that's just going to get it in the neck tonight. Not even joking. Like someone needs to be knocked down like about 100 pegs at this point, and we'll get to him. And I thought, yeah, there was choices made. So let's see. We started off with the Hurt Syndicate coming out. Great entrance music for these guys. They looked amazing. We had MVP doing a promo. He said, he talked about them giving out their business cards. He said, if you accept it, it'll change your life. If you reject it, this is what happens. And they showed what happened to Swerve. He cut a really, really good promo. And then we had Swerve come out that was just like full gear, to issue a challenge. And they accepted that challenge. And I thought this was very 50-50. I thought the Hurt Business looked awesome, and MVP sounded so good. The presentation of this group is a 10 out of 10. They really look like the dominant force in AEW. I think that they really actually diminish what Moxley's doing with the Death Riders, because I feel like when I see them, I would be way more into them being the top act on the show, and that's not really where we are right now with everything that's going on with Moxley. One thing though that I did agree with when I listened to my pals at What Culture, where they were saying, why are all these heel groups obsessed with elevating like younger wrestlers as part of their gimmick? Because you've got MVP talking about handing out his business cards. That's what the whole learning tree is. You've got Moxley asking young guys to step up, and it's just like, yeah, these heels are very obsessed with, what with making these young guys get the best out of themselves, and it's not really a heel trait. But anyway, I thought that the crowd here, they were in Manchester, New Hampshire, and this was not a good crowd, but Dynamite crowds aren't good anymore. They had around 3,000 people in the building. So this challenge that Swerve issued would have come out a lot better if the crowd were just better, or if there were just more people. I thought it fell very flat. But the crowd are behind the Hurt Syndicate, which probably isn't a great sign because they are meant to be heels. But at the same time, they're really cool. So I don't see people booing them. And, you got to look at, we're being positioned right now to cheer for people like John Silver, who is just going to be a little bit of a punching bag for me for a while after his behavior with those nunchucks. When you're given the choice of him or Bobby Lashley, MVP, and Shelton Benjamin, just based on looks alone, I think the Hurt Syndicate are much cooler than a lot of the baby faces that are running around AEW at the minute, talking about how they've been there for 5 years and how they owe their lives to AEW. I think it's the Hurt Syndicate putting on suits and kicking ass is a much cooler presentation. So I expect these guys to be massive baby faces very soon. So hopefully the booking will be ready for that. But that was that. This was very short, and I was conscious the whole night of them being up against NXT. So I thought it was very strong opening to have them there. The NXT show, it opened up with a lot of video packages reminding you of old NXT, and it had then Jada Parker defeating Lola Vice in a hardcore match with Dawn Marie as special guest referee. I had no real interest in this other than seeing Dawn Marie, someone I remember from my childhood. Always nice to see a familiar face. I thought she looked great. This was really funny because in this match, we had a gimmicked brick being used. So Jada Parker hit Lola Vice with a gimmicked brick, and that didn't work. And then Jada Parker beat Lola with her ass, basically. So ass beats brick. I thought that this match was just pretty silly, but it was pretty indicative of how you can't do anything resembling actual ECW with the way NXT is and the way NXT is presented and the way the characters are. Not that any of us were thinking that we were going to get like authentic ECW, but you know what I mean? It's just like very watered down. I don't want to say commercialized because like ECW was commercial itself, but you know what I mean? It's just very, it's like kids playing dress up ECW more than anything that actually resembled ECW. You know, you've got Dawn Marie as the referee, and if you actually remember Dawn Marie in ECW, these two things don't compute. But anyway, that's what was going on in the other channel. So we had Orange Cassidy and then Darby Allin, and they defeated Claudio and Pac, but it was by disqualification. So this just ended up into, you know, a total brawl mess. Claudio had some pretty good spots in this match, but I find he's not one of my favorite workers to watch, to be honest. I feel him like a little bit boring. I really like Pac. But Claudio and Pac have, I think, a very definite ceiling. So that further makes me not take Moxley's group as seriously as I maybe should, but I know that they're, you know, trying to get Wheeler Yuta over, and Marina Shafir is also awesome. So you had Marina Shafir just kicking Bryce Winsberg, the referee, from the ring. Jon Moxley choked out Orange Cassidy. Darby Allin hit him with a skateboard in the back, and then Wheeler Yuta jumped in, and Darby was fighting off Pac, Yuta, and Claudio with a skateboard. And then he ducked Shafir in the briefcase, and then he ran into Claudio. He was launched into the ring post off a gorilla press, and it was like a 5-on-1 attack. And then we had the conglomeration finally come out with Mark Briscoe, Kyle O'Reilly, Rocky Romero, and Tomohiro Ishii, and the Death Riders like retreated from that. So it's interesting, like, where this whole story with Moxley has gone. Now, they are officially called the Death Riders now, and that was mentioned on commentary so many times. Commentary, by the way, was particularly bad on this show. Tony Schiavone seemed to be in another one of his moods, and I think when he's in his moods, Nigel's not the best person in there with him. But anyway, so we've gone from having the baby faces wait for the heels, and then them realizing that that wasn't a very good idea. And then we had all the stuff that went on with Mark Briscoe losing the Ring of Honor title and his friends not helping him except for Rocky. And last week, what happened last week? Oh, we had that massive brawl before the private party match. And then here, yeah, these guys just took their time, and there wasn't much more from Moxley's gang. They came later, so later they were seen leaving the arena, and Moxley put over how Wheeler Yuta doesn't owe Orange Cassidy anything, even if he helped him. But it was very little from the Death Riders this week, which made me think they felt just more like a heel faction than the threat that they'd been set out to be. And obviously, I've talked the past couple of weeks about how I think the threat of them doesn't really work in storyline, having this overarching storyline of Moxley taking over the company, not taking over the company in the same way that the Elite said they were going to, but, you know, him being this massive threat to everything, and how, like, that's very hard to do. It's very NWO, very Invasion, very whatever. And now it's like they've pulled it back. But then at the same time, are they just heels now? Like, I don't know. And I thought that I would have loved to have seen like better follow-up with Private Party after winning the titles. I know they did on Collision, I think it was. And there was no referencing at all of like how the Young Bucks have run away. Didn't see Christopher Daniels on the show unless I blinked and I missed him. So it just felt that even though they had a match on this show, that they just wanted to get Moxley and his gang on this show, but they didn't really have anything for them to do. It was a bit of a lame duck episode for those guys. So I don't know what was going on there, but I thought it was an odd decision to make when you're going head to head with NXT, who are doing an ECW tribute show. Like, maybe someone could have had an idea where there was a storyline running throughout where Moxley and his gang were doing something dastardly, so people might want to keep tuning in all night to see what was going to happen, considering these people have a history of, choking guys to death. Something like that to make people feel something for it. But it was a lot of nothing. Over in NXT, we had, now I've lost my place. Okay. We had Rich Holland and Ethan Page saying there's going to be no tables. Do you think there's going to be no tables, guys? And then Wesley ambushed Rob Van Dam, who is giving advice to Kalani Jordan. We'll talk more about Rob later. And then next week, we're getting Rizzo against Nikita Lyons. Nikita is not good at talking. Now, over on AEW, over on the other side, we get Renee with Ricochet. Apparently, Renee was on crutches, but like Adam Cole was made to come to work. So I'm joking. I'm sure she offered to come to work. I hope she's okay. She asked Ricochet who his mystery partner will be, like first reference to that. And he said he could pick anyone because anyone might have issues with the Don Callis family. And then we had the Hurt Syndicate approach, and they wished him good luck. And what was interesting was Ricochet was dressed in a suit, and it was the same suit he wore in New Japan. And he looked very much like he would fit in with the Hurt Syndicate. So it made you think two things. One, is he joining the Hurt Syndicate? And two, might his partner be one of the Hurt Syndicate? Neither. His partner wasn't, spoiler alert, and we don't know if he's joining. But it was a nice little thing to give you some intrigue. And I think the Hurt Syndicate are the most intriguing thing on Dynamite. So it was nice to see them pop up again in their lovely suits, get that wear out of them. Then we had the Fight Without Honor. So it was Mark Briscoe, Kyle O'Reilly, Tomohiro Ishii versus Chris Jericho, Big Bill, and Brian Keith. I thought this was fine. I don't have any problems with it. I do think it was done just because we're opposing NXT on the other side, who are doing an ECW themed show. Jericho was in ECW, so he's got that going for him. That was a long time ago, but he had a nice little cup of coffee there. And I just thought it was totally fine. Like, the problem with it was that it wasn't hardcore enough, because AEW has done some crazy hardcore matches, and this was a Fight Without Honor opposing the ECW show, so they didn't go far enough. But at the same time, I'm not really into seeing Jericho like constantly trying to kill himself on TV every week to stick it to the internet. Because I think this, much like the ladder match that we saw, the ladder war, it's all unearned stuff. And it's all been a total waste of using the Jay Briscoe stuff, but I'm not going to get into that again because I'll just end up repeating myself on how I feel about this. But the match was perfectly fine. And Ishii held the title at the end, but we're not sure if you were meant to see that or not, because was it kind of hidden, or was there shoddy camera work? I think you were meant to see it though, because Jericho seemed to be audibly calling for Ishii to hold up the title, so there's that. But yeah, it was just fine. It was fine. Fine to good, right? And Jericho always does pretty good in the ratings, and I did look at the rating chart before I came on, and things started to dip around in this quarter, the quarter that this match ended. And I certainly would not put any blame on Chris Jericho, but we'll get to that. Over on the other side, Javon Evans defeated Wesley. RVD came out. RVD seemed to not be cleared at all to do anything. So he was there and it was awkward. It was really awkward. And we also saw Eddie Thorpe, who I didn't recognize because he had quite a bizarre look going on. And we had Ava doing an in-ring thing and announcing the next PLE. Ava's very bad at talking and anything else she tries in wrestling. And she had Robert Stone with her and Stevie Turner, whose name I always forget because I used to know her before she was in NXT. But she had them with them. The lights go out and we get Rhino, who gorged Robert Stone. And I was just laughing like, I don't want to be mean about Rhino. He was really nice to me when I interviewed him once, and I saw him wrestle here in Toronto. Man, he looks like a human fridge, and just watching this, like, I don't know, this I just don't like nostalgia. So Javon Evans and Wesley, great young talent, love to see it. And then in the same quarter, like, you're getting freaking Rhino coming out, and it's not even, I don't know. It's, to me, I don't see it as like this great tribute. I see it as kind of sad, really. So I couldn't be arsed with that. The fans weren't that into like Rhino either. I think there's other names they could have used that are even more ECW, but I think the names that someone like me thinks of when you hear ECW are probably people they can't use. Like Sabu, he was involved in a horrendous piece of shit in AEW about 2 years ago, the Adam Cole Jericho feud, and I'm not sure that I'm just not sure Sabu's someone they'd want to use. Not sure about the Sandman either for like similar reasons. You have Taz under contract with AEW, not that he'd be able to wrestle or anything. They're not going to use Raven. So you're kind of left with the Rhinos, right? RVD, anyone will use for anything, and he has a very nice contract that allows him to be places. But look, Rhino being on my TV was not like lighting my world on fire. Let me get back here to Dynamite because I've lost my place, and I feel like my rant is incoming, and I'm sure you all know exactly who it's going to be directed towards. So where did we leave off on AEW? Oh, we left off with Jericho. Okay, that's cool. So then the Death Riders left. We've already talked about that. All right, we have to do it. We have to talk about Adam Cole and Malachi Black. I thought this was fucking awful. I thought this was so self-indulgent. This was two guys basically wanking themselves off over Triple H's NXT Black and Gold shit. This is where the ratings dip. If you look at the ratings chart, they dip in the quarter that this match starts in. And I would say that was everyone flipping over once these two guys got started. So firstly, with Adam Cole, I know there's been a lot of talk about what he looks like. I do just, I have a ton of sympathy for him with all the injuries that he's been through and the personal stuff as well. He absolutely does need to get some advice from the fake tan. I'm a fake tan girly myself, and that's not me offering to help Adam, but I'm sure there are some people there that can help Adam. Like, someone joked in the Discord I'm in that their headcanon is that Britt Baker did his fake tan, and that's why he looks like this now. And that might very well be true. But there's other guys in the locker room, not MJF, don't ask MJF, that could give you some tips on tanning, because he truly looked radioactive on TV here. It was not good. But this match really wasn't good. These two guys who have had many matches before, not that many, but they've had a few, they were acting like this was an all-time rivalry. Like anyone give a shit about these guys' priors. And the end of the match was the worst thing. So I mean, like, the whole match was just fucking boring. And I was just like, Tony, like, why are you allowing this? These guys, like, Malachi is like Al Bundy from Married with Children. You know how Al Bundy couldn't get over the fact that he was a star footballer in high school? Aleister Black, Malachi Black, Tommy Belland can't get over the fact that Triple H let him come up in a coffin on NXT, right? That is his high school football moment. And he's like trapped in that mind. And Adam Cole has just not found his way back yet in any way. And he's losing his crowd connection. There's people that would always say that they think like what got Adam Cole over was like entrance catchphrase. It really feels like that might be true now that he's not able to connect with the crowd properly. They're just not into what he's doing. So what happened was Adam Cole hit Malachi Black with a Panama Sunrise and another super kick. And then Aleister Black just sat with his legs crossed and told Cole to like put him out of his misery. Cole hit the boom and got the win. And then we had them shake hands. Adam Cole offered a handshake. Malachi Black shrugged. And then he like looked back. And then Adam Cole said that he's one of the best opponents he's had in 16 years. Right. So to anyone, it looked like Malachi Black was saying goodbye. Okay. So then there was a report from Fightful that came out in the night that was like, sources in AEW or whatever. They think his contract might be coming up soon, but they don't know. And then Aleister Malachi Tommy Belland goes on Instagram and he's like, I don't know why people are talking about me like I might be leaving. I'm not injured. I haven't been injured in 3 years, which actually contradicts what he had said before about being injured. And that he's not going anywhere. And like, I just took a loss in TV. Why is everyone acting like this? I'll tell you why, Tommy Belland, you absolute charlatan. This is a guy that won't do jobs. Like, he won't do jobs. What did I say to you last week? I said that if Aleister Black does a job for Adam Cole must actually be the nicest wrestler ever, because this guy won't job for anyone. And what did he do? He did this stupid fucked up finish where he like sacrificed himself rather than lose the match like a normal wrestler and acted like he was the Undertaker or something. And he then goes on his social media and is acting all like, oh, these dirt sheets, these reporters, like, why are they talking about me? Why me? Well, the thing is, Tommy, that on this show, we saw Chris Jericho, Takeshita take a pin, right? Two people that are way more talented than you and one of whom is way more famous than you. And none of them acted like you did after taking the pin. And also none of them are scared to take pins, which you seemingly are. And if Malachi is unsure of why he has this reputation, it's because he puts no effort in anymore. He never loses. He half-asses everything. And then sometimes he doesn't even turn up to work. And that's why people think you're unhappy and you want to leave, Malachi. And the reason why reporters, journalists, or whatever you want to call people, whether it's Sean Ross Sapp or me, right? Because I will admit that I have asked in AEW about Malachi Black before. The reason any of us do it is because of your behavior. It's because of how you act. It's because of the reputation that you have. And it's not just the reputation you have from, you know, sources telling people things. Like, fans watching the TV see this, okay? So whenever I've asked about Malachi Black, what do I hear about Malachi Black? Bad attitude, doesn't want to lose. What does it look like when it comes to Malachi Black? That he has a bad attitude and doesn't want to lose. And he is always so quick to like jump on his social media and act like everyone is persecuting him by talking about him and talking about his status. But he creates all this himself. There is nothing that Tommy Belland wants more than to create online discussion about him wanting out of AEW so that he can fulfill his dream and waltz back into a WWE run by Triple H, who will then let him do his little coffin entrance, black metal entrance again. Like, no. This guy is just a bullshit merchant. Like, he really is. And it's, as I've said, it's all his own doing. And I hate when he acts like that. Like, there's so many people that lose on AEW, right? There's so many wrestlers of like different there's so many wrestlers that are like high level ex-WWE guys to low level guys, whatever. Like, so many wrestlers lose every week and none of them act like Malachi Black. And none of us act when we see it happen, okay? If Orange Cassidy takes a pinfall, we're not all going, oh my God, do you think he's leaving? No, because he actually seems happy in work and willing to work. And Malachi just doesn't. So it just annoys me that he then goes on social media and acts like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. Like, just give it a fucking rest, man. Like, try actually. Do you remember when he was fired from WWE and he was on Talk Is Jericho and he's like, I've written down a storyline for me and every guy in the AEW roster, you know, I'm so creative. Like, it's just fucking bullshit. He's just a guy that's watched too many horror movies and thinks that he's got something to say, or like, he's not even going to be a fucking Satanist. Like, just like, get him off TV. And I think that Tony is too kind to him, letting him basically do whatever he wants, because when you hear about him not wanting to lose and stuff, then of course what's going to come after that? And Tony just lets him, you know. And if I was Tony, I would just kick this guy out. I would literally just throw him out and say, don't ever come back. And if I was Triple H, I'd lock my doors so he doesn't get in. So I think that, yes, that's quite a rant, but I think that fucking Malachi Black deserves it for like the way he's gone on. This ending to this match was ridiculous, especially if the fucker isn't leaving. Ridiculous. Just take a pin. And then Adam Cole acting like these guys have such deep, meaningful history. Like, you really don't. And you especially don't to an AEW audience. And it's an AEW audience, an ever-decreasing one, that is watching your show. And if you look at the ratings chart, this is when people started turning off. And I wonder why. And another reason why people might start turning off is because Adam Cole is locked in a ridiculous storyline with MJF that no one wants to continue. And MJF can't turn up for work either because he's filming flipping Happy Gilmore with Adam Sandler. So we have these stupid videos of him where he's trying to look like Bruce Wayne that all look like they were recorded in one go. And so it's whoever gets to 2 wins first gets to face MJF, but like both Strong and Cole are going to get there. So it's going to be a triple threat. It's just convoluted. It's stupid. No one wants this. And then we see MJF. He's so mad. So he puts in a phone call and, like, spoiler alert, The phone call is sent to Don Callis, like a very big guy gives a phone to Don Callis, and it's going to be Adam Cole versus Takeshita. Which, why the fuck would you book this match? Like, Takeshita better not lose this. He better not. And we'll get to the ending later, but Adam Cole comes out to no pop at all because he's cold as fuck, because he's been put in this stupid feud with MJF that he has to keep trying to justify, that we then had this little side quest involving the House of Black and Malachi, who is allegedly not leaving, but he fucking should be. And yeah. As Fernando says, yeah, MJF is not a champion. I don't understand. Yeah. Why does MJF have this power over Adam Cole? Like, why don't you, Adam Cole, if you want revenge on MJF so much, wait for the day that he actually turns up to work and jump him like a normal wrestler would, and maybe he'll give you a match instead of putting us through this, you know? It's a terrible storyline. And the whole Malachi thing just made me even more annoyed. And that was a really bad quarter hour of TV on both sides, because on the other side, it's fucking Bully Ray. It's Rich Holland and Ethan Page defeating Trick Williams and Bubba Ray. And who takes the pinfall? Of course it's not Bubba Ray. Of course it's not the man in his 50s who's just a podcaster now, still trying to relive his glory. It's Trick Williams. It's someone who might actually have a future. He's the guy that takes the pin. I thought this was bullshit. Devon came out, couldn't care less about Devon. This was I did tweet, I want a third promotion, and that's how I felt during this whole thing going on. There was nothing on either side for me. It was bad. Okay, but then they brought out some great people, because we had Jay White, and Renee was backstage with him, and he was asked about what Hangman Page said, but then Hangman came down and they had a brawl, and in the end, Jay White had the microphone. He begged for Page to tell him what he was going to do to him at Full Gear. He said he's going to dismantle Page at Full Gear and he'll have fun. And he said Page told him he'll leave White behind, but he's never been ahead of him, and he's going to like kill Adam Page's leg, and he'll be the first to make Adam Page tap out. I still want more from these guys. I still want a proper like in-ring segment, but I really like what they did last week. I really liked Adam Page saying, I know what you'll do to me. You're the king of the counters, all this, like a very intelligent wrestler, but you don't know what I'll do to you, because I'm capable of burning down your house. So this brawl afterwards was really good. Yeah. Now we move on to what was the worst segment in the show to not involve Adam Cole or Malachi Black. Renee was backstage with Chris Statlander, who, for some reason, Chris Statlander is turning up for work at this time. So she's like, hey, what about your match at Full Gear? Like, not even a proper question. And she's like, I can't wait, girl. And then we hear a car coming. It nearly runs Chris Statlander over. No, it's not a car. It's a truck, and it's being driven by Camille. And then Mercedes Monet, who's like a Valley girl, was like, Camille, what are you doing? You nearly hit her with a car. It's so bad. It's like, go after her. And then Camille got slammed into the car door. And Chris like fucking rock bottomed her on the hood of the car. This was awful. I said last week how bad I thought the Mercedes segment where Renee had to ask her a stupid question was, because it was so WWE. And I don't think we have to pretend that we don't know who's writing these segments, since one of these wrestlers brought their own writer to AEW. And I think this is maybe why certain people aren't a fit in AEW. This was such bad WWE garbage. Like, what was Mercedes' plan here? To have Camille commit vehicular manslaughter on Chris Statlander just to get her out? Or Chris Statlander is an idiot that can't drive? Like, whatever it was stupid. It was so bad. And I don't know, like, we have someone in the writer's room now who allegedly would bring an Emmy Award to work, and this is the stuff she's coming up with, especially for women. This is dreadful. This is old WWE garbage. And Mercedes has not been good so far in AEW, and I would place some of the blame on the storytelling. And Camille looks as pissed off as Malachi Black most of the time. So it looks like they're going to split these two up. Hasn't been a good team either, because what Mercedes is not secure enough to actually have a bodyguard stand next to her and make the bodyguard like look like Diesel if she's being Shawn, right? She always has to try and be the same height as Camille. What she really needs is a mouthpiece. She doesn't need a bodyguard. She needs a mouthpiece. But yeah, Mercedes had just been, it's not that she's been booked terribly, it's that she's been terribly written for. And I wonder what goes on with the AEW writing. Is it just that anything that is written down for Mercedes by Peppermint is accepted, whereas maybe in WWE it had to go through some more filters, because this is really bad writing. Like, it's offensively bad. And Monet used to come off as very cool and collected and together, but the way they're having her talk and everything, she just comes across like an airhead. It's very like 80s Valley Girl, like Frank Zappa, like ish. It's really taking down her character, really. And I just don't know what they're thinking with some of this shit. What happened on NXT? I don't know if this was when there was Tony D'Angelo defeating Nunzio. Wild to see Nunzio again. I guess like maybe Nunzio was like the nicest thing on this show. I'm not sure. And they also showed Francine, which is cool. Francine has a podcast. It's always nice to see female talents from a time when it was not good to be a female talent, like still, thriving. And I'm sure me and Francine don't agree on everything, but it's nice to see her still out there doing her thing. And it was cool that they had her at the show. And she is a true ECW person, like more than some of the guys on the show. Like Francine is really like, she's the queen of extreme. She's completely synonymous with ECW. So it was great for them to invite her. Then we had a Christian Cage and Hook face to face. So they're really trying to do something here. I think Christian is trying to make something out of the storyline, which probably isn't what it was meant to be due to the unfortunate illness of Luchasaurus. Really hope he's on the mend, but I think they've had to like change plans. A lot of this Kip Sabian stuff doesn't really make sense, but Christian made an effort to make it make sense, saying that he took the pen off him because he knew that he would get attacked. And now he's teasing that he might like Kip Sabian more than Nick Wayne. So he's doing some stuff here. And basically with Hook, he said that Taz saw him attack Hook and didn't tell Hook. And basically that Hook should be dead. And he tried to. And that was really that. I thought that the bits with Christian were fine. I still don't have any desire to see Kip Sabian doing anything. And Hook, to me, I would have cut bait on after his Jericho feud, because that just showed no improvement and that like the ceiling had been hit. So now we're taking another guy in his 50s and pairing him with Hook to see if we can get anything out of Hook. And I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. We then had the backstage bit with Don Callis. He's got like the diamond ring and some money from MJF. And they're going to prevent Cole from winning next week. We then had a very short match between Jamie Hayter and Penelope Ford, which I thought was fine. But they've really fumbled the bag here with Jamie in her comeback and just not making her a big deal. Like, we're suffering things like not Saraya. Well, we had to suffer Saraya when Jamie Hayter came back, but we're suffering things like Mercedes and her, car bullshit. And when, Jamie Hayter's right there. And I feel like I was talking on my Q&A about how I think we might be in like a Saraya problem with Mercedes, where the women that AEW has, every time they finally get them somewhere, like they bring in someone from WWE that just kind of fucks it up a bit. And Mercedes kind of like chokehold on the TBS title and all of that, I think isn't good for someone like Jamie Hayter, because they only do one women's match a week on Dynamite. I mean, Jamie's all her matches have pretty much been on Rampage or Collision since she came back. None of this Penelope Ford stuff has been built up on Dynamite, really. You just don't get the TV time if you're a woman, like especially not the Dynamite TV time. And we all know that the Dynamite TV time is the TV time that matters, because most of the fan base are only watching Dynamite and they're still able to follow the product. So I would like more for Jamie Hayter. Mina Shirakawa's back last week. Barely had time to miss her. We had this wild package for Okada, which was a package like we'd never seen Okada before. And I thought what was funny about this was they were saying that Okada is tied with Chono. Well, if he wins the Continental Classic, he'll be tied with Chono for the most tournament wins. But they were putting the G1 on the same level as the Continental Classic, and I'm not sure it's there yet, since we've only had one Continental Classic. So I thought it was just really weird blending like G1 records with the Continental Classic tournament record. I don't know. But it made me wonder if the Rainmaker is coming back, because the Young Bucks are gone. So he doesn't have them to bounce off and like pop up and say bitch. So we going to get serious Okada now? I don't know, but I don't even know if that's what Okada wants to be. But it was just an odd video package. It was a good video package, but it was odd too. And it made me wonder. Over in NXT, we had what I would say was the only actual good thing on the NXT show. We had a 10 women's match. So we had Jordan Grace, Stephanie Vaquer, Julia, Kalani Jordan, and Zarya defeating Fallon Henry, Jessie Jane, Jasmine Nix, Cora Jade, and Roxanne Perez. So we had Zarya, that's the former Delta. She pinned Perez to win the match, which is a really big deal. And I just thought this match was really good. And the strength of NXT is their women's division. And it's even more like, it's like even more skewed now, because they have like Zarya, Stephanie Vaquer, Julia, and they basically have Jordan Grace, right? So none of those people are NXT homegrowns, right? Your NXT homegrowns are like your Kalani Jordans, Jessie Janes, Jasmine Nix, Cora Jade. And I know some of those names had indie experience, but their experience levels are nothing like the other women I've mentioned. But putting like Jordan and Stephanie and Julia into that women's division just like stacks it even more. And I do think that it is better than the AEW women's division, but more than that, like, is at least given time. Like, NXT is only 2 hours a week, And you're going to get way more women on that show than you would ever get on a Dynamite. And just having Stephanie, Julia, and the chance of Jordan, and now the former Delta in there is just incredible. So I'm really high on Julia and Stephanie. I've been high on Jordan for a really long time. I need to see more of Delta, but Julia and Stephanie, especially, like, if AEW had managed to get those women, there's no way that Dynamite could continue just doing one measly women's match, but they didn't get them. But I just thought that women's match was really, really good. And it just says something that they main evented this ECW show with a women's match. I think it says something really positive. Like, for all the faults that we have with NXT, I think a lot of us can agree that it's not really a great wrestling program, and it's probably not particularly our taste. If you're watching a live Dynamite review, or if you know who I am, you're probably not the kind of person that NXT is catering to. But I think one thing they do really well is the women, and that's how they're able to sign women like Julia and Stephanie Vaquer, and putting a women's match in. They opened and closed the show with women. And Dynamite, it's one woman's match a week, and it's been that way for 5 years. That's why the lads at What Culture do a joke every week where you guess what time the women's match is. And the joke is that the women only have a match as like an obligatory thing, or as they put it, like, because you got to get the birds on the show because it's 2024, because that's how it feels like. And the whole joke, they say, when the women come out to play, the main event ain't too far away. And that is just what it's like in AEW. You get one women's match, and it's always sandwiched in a little spot where it won't take up too much time. And don't worry, men are going to come and save the day. And yeah, it's just really bad. And I think one great positive you can see on NXT, and NXT it seems to have very good representation as well, but from a purely female perspective, the representation of women is really good, and they allow the women to be in these big spots. Like Shawn Michaels and Triple H, who I'm sure has some say in stuff, is like, they're not sitting there going, hey, we're on Wednesday night, it's an important night, we want to beat AEW, let's not put the women in the main event. That would be too risky. Let's, give it to Trick Williams, or give it to Ethan Page, or give it to an ex ECW guy, like a legend that we're bringing in. They're like, no, we know these women are going to be fucking great, and we'll put them in the main event, and they'll open the show as well. And Lola Vice was up opening the show, and she's not the most polished person, but they gave her that. And I think that NXT is just so much better with women. And I was talking about this on my Q&A the other day, because I was asked a question to do with female representation, and Tony has really, really failed in this. And I was trying to write something the other day where I was thinking about like the milestone moments for women that I've lived through, and one of them would obviously be the women's revolution. Milestone moments for women in wrestling, by the way, not in the world. So it would be like the women's revolution, Vince McMahon having to step down, and Vince McMahon, the Janelle Grant lawsuit. But to me at the time, AEW starting out, I thought was going to be a really big deal for women. And I don't think it's turned out that way at all. And I'm not just talking about like what they present on TV and in ring, but like just in general, it's certainly not any kind of a priority for Tony Khan to make the industry better for women or anything like that, or representation within the industry. But yeah, I just think at least NXT give the women the ball to run with, and even if you say that the women on NXT aren't the best wrestlers, I think when it comes to ones like, Lola Vice or Kalani, they're learning. and they'll get there. And now they've brought in these women with a lot of experience like Julia and Stephanie and Jordan that can help them. And someone like Roxanne who worked in Ring of Honor, around the pandemic time. She's improved so much by being in NXT. Cora Jade has improved. And you don't necessarily need these women to be the greatest in-ring workers. They're learning a lot more in NXT than just to wrestle because they get mic time too. But Dynamite, you can get some tiny women segments, or you can get something ridiculous like Mercedes trying to hit a woman with a car, and you'll get one match. And that's your lot. That's your lot. So I just want to say, for the ladies, I really think that NXT did it a lot better. Okay, went over, and sorry guys for sidetracking onto that. I'm sure a lot of you didn't want to hear any of that, but I just had that thought, about the women's stuff. So we had Ricochet and his mystery partner defeat Takeshita and Kyle Fletcher. His mystery partner was Powerhouse Hobbs, who I kind of thought it would be because of the Don Callis family connection. So really nice to see Powerhouse Hobbs back, though I feel like I haven't been able to miss him because every time I go to a live show, I see Powerhouse Hobbs. It's just one of those things that happen. But Ricochet got the pin on Takeshita. Not too happy about Takeshita being pinned. But I guess it was all about the post-match. So Powerhouse Hobbs comes back. So it's a return. And when Tony Khan gets one idea, he can't just leave it at that. So he needs to add more onto this. He needs to add on more hats. So Powerhouse Hobbs, he gets his return, but he doesn't get any kind of closing moment of his return, because after they're all ganging up on Hobbs and Ricochet, out comes Mark Davis. The crowd still don't know who Mark Davis is, and I'm very sorry to say that. He's a very nice guy, but as Benno joked, most of the people in this arena would not have recognized Mark Davis if he'd been serving them at the concession stand all night. They just don't know who he is. And it doesn't help that his current presentation has him looking very average dude because he's just back from injury. Then we had Lance Archer and Brian Cage. Then Adam Cole came out. No one cares, because you just get triggered thinking about all the shit he's already put you through in the show. And then we get Will Ospreay coming back. So it's Will that comes to save the day. And that's kind of what we end on. But I honestly think it was a bit of a dud ending, even though we had the return of Ospreay. But it's, he hasn't been away long enough for it to be a big, massive return. They're going to have to do some work in literally introducing the crowd to Mark Davis, because I think people forget that people really didn't know or have much interest in Aussie Open before this Kyle Fletcher push. We need to be fully reintroduced to Mark Davis, because I think people have just forgotten him and his story. Nice to see Will back. Don't know why Takeshita's taking pins, honestly. But yeah, that was Dynamite. Yeah, I didn't think it was a very good show. I thought it was probably one of the least eventful shows, honestly, in the past couple of weeks, because, I really liked the show last week, didn't I? I really did like it. And then the other weeks when I haven't liked the shows, I've had stuff that I've been excited to talk about. But I don't think there was much I was excited to talk about this week, even though I did manage to talk to you guys for an hour. But yeah, I think they're very directionless. I think they've put a lot of eggs in the Jon Moxley Death Rider basket. But then they're not fully confident in it, despite putting the eggs in there. I would transfer a lot of my eggs over to MVP. That sounds weird if you just tuned in, but you know what I mean. I give the Hurt Syndicate some more of the backing that the Death Rider gang are getting, because at the end of the day, I think you have way more chance of making a group like the Hurt Syndicate, who are just a couple of badass wrestlers coming together to like be dominant, right? That's a very simple wrestling story. Like, that's nothing special. It just so happens that it looks and is special because of the talent, but like, that's a very basic story. I think you have way more chance of making them a successful, lasting thing in AEW than doing this often messy Jon Moxley story, honestly. What did we learn, guys? I think we learned that Americans like ECW nostalgia more than what AEW were offering. Nostalgia is king. Really, I do think it's sad that they lost in the ratings war on their night. Like, they got, it wasn't like a big loss, but still, they took an ass kicking on a Wednesday, and it's not good. And there was nothing special, like, to me, there was nothing special on that NXT show. They just have momentum behind them. They just have momentum, and they were because they do usually have like quite an old audience, and those guys were maybe watching ECW back in the day, so I guess they got reminded of that. But I think the biggest and best takeaway, and I'll not go on about it again, that you can take from the NXT show is that they just, like, they'll give the ball to women and let them roll with it. And even if the women are kind of green, like, they do their best. And the women's main event was, I think, the best match of the night over the two shows. And the takeaway from Dynamite was like, they just didn't do anything that felt special. They just didn't. They didn't make you excited for anything, and they lost. And also, this black and gold era of NXT that people hold up in such esteem, it really wasn't that great, but we certainly don't have to keep calling back to it. And Tony, please never let two black and gold NXT guys wank each other off on your TV show again, okay? I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. And if this stream finds its way to Malachi Black, Malachi, I know this is what you wanted. You wanted people to talk about you. You can't blame people for talking about you. You can't blame reporters for asking about you. And if you are committed to AEW and you're not injured and nothing's wrong, then behave yourself at work and do some pinfalls and help to get some people over. Okay. Well, anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me. I had a lot of fun. Okay, next week might be a bit up in the air because I'll be with Benno. And so I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I do have an idea, but I haven't asked him about the idea yet. But I will review Dynamite. It just might not be solo, but I promise I'll review Dynamite next week. I saw someone ask in the chat if I'm going to be at Full Gear. I am. I'll be at Full Gear and the Dynamite in Chicago the week after. So, if you see me, say hi. But anyway, until next week, bye.